Welcome to Natural English Talk.
Hello and welcome to Natural English Talk. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jake. It's good to be here.
Today we're talking about those days where everything feels a bit heavier than usual. Specifically, those moments when you know what you should be doing, but the energy just isn't there.
I think we all know that feeling. For me, it usually starts the very second the alarm goes off. That first sound is like a signal for a long negotiation with myself.
It's interesting how loud that inner voice is when the room is still dark. You're lying there and suddenly you're a lawyer making a case for why 10 more minutes will change your entire life.
Exactly. I find myself looking at the ceiling thinking, if I skip the shower and just wash my face, I can stay here for 12 more minutes. It's not even about the sleep anymore. It's about avoiding the start of the day.
I've had mornings where I stay under the covers even after I'm wide awake. I'm not tired, but I'm just empty. There's no excitement for anything on the to-do list.
That emptiness is the hardest part. You know the floor is going to be cold, and you know you have to make coffee. But the distance between your bed and the kitchen feels like miles.
And you start thinking about the whole day ahead. You're not just thinking about getting up, you're thinking about the meetings, the chores, the things you promised people. It all piles up before you've even put your feet on the floor.
I've actually found myself checking my phone just to feel some kind of spark, but it usually makes it worse. I see everyone else already being productive, and I'm still just a person in a blanket arguing with a clock.
It's a strange friction. You want to be the person who gets up and starts their routine, but the emotional gap is just too wide in that moment.
Sometimes I eventually get up, not because I'm motivated, but because I've run out of excuses. I just roll out of bed and feel like I'm moving in slow motion.
It's a very quiet way to start the day. No music, no energy, just moving because you have to.
That feeling doesn't always go away once you've had your coffee either. I was at my desk yesterday just staring at a spreadsheet. It's a task I've done 100 times. It's not even difficult.
But it felt like you were trying to move a mountain?
Exactly. I just sat there looking at the cursor blinking. Every time I reached for the mouse, my hand felt heavy. I kept thinking I should just type the first number. But then this other voice would say, "What's the point? It's just one number."
I know that what's the point feeling. It's not that you're bored necessarily, it's more like a sudden loss of meaning in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. You're doing the work, but you feel completely disconnected from why you're doing it.
I ended up opening a different tab, then closing it, then just looking out the window. I felt guilty because I was technically at work, but my brain was just offline. I was trying to force a discipline, telling myself to just be professional. But the mental fatigue was so thick.
It's exhausting to fight yourself like that. You spend more energy trying to convince yourself to work than you would actually spend doing the work.
That's the irony of it. I spent 30 minutes worrying about a 5-minute task. I kept checking my watch, hoping that maybe if enough time passed, I'd suddenly feel a burst of energy. But it never came.
I found that when I'm in that state, even the smallest distraction feels like a relief. A notification on my phone or someone walking past my desk becomes an excuse to stop the struggle for a second.
It's like you're waited for something outside of you to fix the mood. But usually it's just you and that blinking cursor. I eventually just close my eyes for a minute. Not to sleep, but just to stop looking at the screen.
Did that help at all, or did it just make the "what's the point" voice louder?
A bit of both. It gave me a second of peace, but when I opened my eyes, the spreadsheet was still there. The weight hadn't moved. I realized then that I wasn't going to find motivation that afternoon. I just had to be okay with being tired while I worked.
That's a hard realization to sit with, that the feeling of heaviness isn't going to leave just because you want it to. It's even harder when you've actually managed to take a break, like coming back after a long weekend and seeing a project you left half finished on your desk.
Oh, that's the worst. You look at the notes you wrote to yourself on Friday, and they feel like they were written by a different person, someone who actually cared about the project.
You open the file, and there's this immediate sense of guilt. You feel like you've lost the momentum, and now you're standing at the bottom of a hill looking up.
I had that happen with a presentation last week. I had a few slides done, and they looked okay on Friday, But on Monday morning, I just stared at them and thought, does any of this even matter? Is this actually good?
That doubt is so quiet but so heavy. You start questioning the original effort. You wonder if the reason you stopped was because you were tired, or if you stopped because deep down you knew it wasn't working.
And the longer you sit there doubting it, the harder it is to type a single word. You feel like you've broken a spell. When you're in the flow, everything makes sense. But once that flow stops, it's like trying to restart an old engine that's gone cold.
I think we often blame ourselves for losing the thread. We think we should be able to just pick up exactly where we left off, but we're different people every day. Our energy levels change.
I spent about an hour just clicking through the slides, changing a font here, moving a picture there. I wasn't making progress, I was just pretending to work because I was too afraid to admit I didn't know how to continue.
It's a strange kind of mourning for the motivation you had a few days ago. You wish you could go back and borrow some of that energy, but it's gone.
Exactly. You feel like you're failing your past self. You promised you'd finish it quickly, and now you're just sitting there, feeling like a stranger to your own work.
And sometimes the only way through is to accept that it's going to feel clunky for a while. It's not going to be pretty and it might not feel inspired, but you just have to put one foot in front of the other until the rhythm comes back.
I felt that same clunkiness yesterday at the gym. I finally made it there, which was a victory in itself. But once I was actually on the treadmill, I felt completely disconnected.
Like your body was moving, but your mind was somewhere else entirely?
Exactly. I was looking at the timer, watching the seconds crawl by. Usually, I can get into a zone where I don't notice the time, but this time, every single step felt like a conscious decision. I wasn't running, I was just performing the act of running.
It's that feeling of doing the motions without the why. You know it's good for you, you know you'll feel better later, but in that specific moment, the reward feels so far away that it's almost invisible.
I even tried changing the music, thinking a different song would give me that spark, but nothing worked. I just felt heavy. I looked at the people around me who seemed so focused and intense, and I felt like a fraud.
It's interesting how we compare our internal struggle to everyone else's external appearance. They might have been having the exact same internal argument, but when you're in that headspace, you feel like the only person in the world who's just going through the motions.
I almost walked out after 10 minutes. I kept thinking, if I'm not feeling it, is it even worth doing? There's this idea that if you don't do it with 100% intensity, it doesn't count.
But that's such a trap, isn't it? The idea that effort only counts if it feels good or energized. Sometimes the most honest form of consistency is just being there, even if you're only giving 10%.
I stayed, but I didn't push myself. I just kept walking. It felt strange to be so uninspired in a place that's usually about high energy. It was a very quiet, almost lonely experience.
It's a different kind of discipline. It's not the shouting and sweating kind. It's the I'm here and I'm tired, but I'm staying kind. It's less dramatic, but in a way, it's much harder.
It really is. By the time I finished, I didn't feel that runner's high people talk about. I just felt like I had finished the chore. But looking back today, I'm glad I didn't walk out, even if the session felt empty at the time.
I think that feeling follows us home, too. There's that specific quiet in the evening when the house is still, and you have that choice to make. You have your book or your course open, but the sofa is right there.
That's the most dangerous time for me. I'll sit down just for a minute to rest my legs, and suddenly I'm in a barely gentle argument with myself. One side says I should finish that chapter, and the other side is whispering that I've done enough today.
It's a very gentle kind of friction. It's not a loud fight, it's more like a slow drifting away from your goals. You start rationalizing it as self-care or resting, even when you know deep down you're just avoiding the effort.
Exactly. I'll look at my laptop on the table, and it looks so cold and demanding. Then I look at the remote control, and it feels like a warm hug. It's not that I even want to watch anything specific, I just want to stop being the person who has to achieve things.
I've noticed that when I choose the passive option, like scrolling or watching TV, it doesn't actually make me feel rested. I'm sitting there, but my mind is still half focused on the thing I'm not doing.
That's the part no one tells you. You aren't really resting because the guilt is sitting there on the sofa with you. I'll be watching a show, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about how much further ahead I would be if I just sat at the desk for 20 minutes.
It's like we're afraid of the friction of starting. We think the whole hour of studying will be hard, but usually it's just the first 5 minutes of opening the book that hurts.
But in the evening, when your energy is low, those 5 minutes feel like an hour. I've had nights where I spend the entire evening thinking about doing the work, and by the time I decide it's too late to start, I'm more tired than if I had just done it.
It's a strange way we treat ourselves. We trade a small amount of productive effort for a large amount of low-level anxiety.
I've started trying to just sit at the table, even if I don't write anything, just to stay in the habit of being in that space. But some nights, the pull of the passive life is just so strong. You just want to turn your brain off and disappear into the cushions.
And I think we have to admit that sometimes we do, and the conflict comes the next morning when we realize the choice we made.
That realization hits even harder when you actually look at the data. I opened my habit tracking app this morning, or even just my physical calendar, and saw those empty squares. 3, 4 days in a row where I just didn't show up.
There's a specific kind of sinking feeling in your stomach when you see that. It's like looking at a broken promise. You had that long streak, that perfect line of check marks, and now it's just gone.
It's the all or nothing trap. As soon as I see one gap, I feel this weird temptation to just stop looking at the calendar entirely. Like, if I don't see the evidence, the failure didn't happen. I almost wanted to delete the app and pretend I never started the habit at all.
Because it's easier to be someone who doesn't have a goal than someone who has a goal and is failing at it. The tension comes from that fear that the streak was the only thing keeping you going.
Exactly. You start thinking, well, the chain is broken now, so what's the point of doing it today? And I'll just start fresh on Monday. But Monday is 3 days away. It's a way of giving yourself permission to keep hiding.
I've done that with my journal. I'll miss a few days, and then I feel like I have to write this long apology to myself for being gone, or I feel like I have to catch up on everything that happened. The backlog becomes so intimidating that I just don't open the book for another week.
It becomes a mountain. You're not just fighting today's task, you're fighting the weights of all the days you missed. I found myself looking at the calendar and trying to figure out if I could just cheat and check the boxes for yesterday just so the line looks pretty again.
It's funny how much we care about the visual of it, but the visual is just a reflection of our internal consistency. When you cheat the list, you know you're lying to yourself, and that creates its own kind of heavy energy.
It does. It makes the whole process feel fake. I eventually just sat there and looked at the empty squares. I had to tell myself, okay, those days are empty. That's the reality. It was uncomfortable to just let them be empty without making an excuse.
It takes a lot of courage to look at your own inconsistency and not turn away, to just say, I stopped, and then pick up the pen for today without trying to fix the past.
It's much less satisfying than seeing a perfect streak, but I guess it's more honest. You're starting again from a place of reality instead of a place of perfection.
It's especially hard to be honest with yourself when you're looking at someone else's perfect reality. I was catching up with a friend for coffee earlier this week, and they were talking about their new morning routine, running 5 miles, meditating, reading, all before 7 a.m.
Those conversations are dangerous. You're sitting there still feeling the weight of the days you skipped, and suddenly you feel like you're playing a completely different game than they are.
Exactly. On the outside, I was nodding and saying, that's amazing, I'm so happy for you. But on the inside, my inner voice was having a field day. It started comparing my messy, quiet struggle to their highlight reel.
It makes your own efforts feel small, doesn't it? You think, why am I struggling to just get out of bed when they're basically a superhero? You don't see their internal exhaustion, you only see the result.
And you start to wonder if there's something fundamentally different about them, like they have a secret source of energy that you just weren't born with. It makes consistency feel like a personality trait rather than a practice.
I've noticed that when I'm in that headspace, I don't even want to talk about my own day. I'll just keep the focus on them because it feels safer than admitting I've been struggling to even open my laptop.
It creates this distance. You feel like you have to hide your fatigue because it doesn't fit the productive conversation. It's lonely to feel exhausted in a room full of people who seem to be winning.
My friend even asked me, "So, how's your project going?" And I just gave a vague, "Oh, it's coming along." I felt like a fraud. I was comparing my internal behind the scenes with their on-stage performance.
We forget that everyone is dealing with some kind of friction. Maybe their morning routine is the only thing they have control over, and the rest of their day is a mess. But we don't think about that. We just see the contrast.
It's that contrast that drains you. By the time I left that coffee shop, I felt tired than when I arrived, not because of the walking, but because of the mental weight of feeling less than.
It's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, to feel like you have to match someone else's rhythm just to be considered consistent. Sometimes staying consistent just means not letting someone else's speed make you stop walking altogether.
And then the day finally ends. You're lying there in bed at night and the room is quiet, but your mind is doing a full review of everything that didn't happen.
It's like a final tally. You look back at all those moments we've been talking about, the alarm, the desk, the gym, and you realize how little you actually crossed off the list.
It's a heavy kind of silence. You wonder if the day was a total waste. There's this unease, wondering if you're just going to wake up and do the exact same thing tomorrow. You ask yourself, is this just who I am now? Someone who just shows up empty-handed?
I've had nights where I try to force myself to be positive, telling myself tomorrow will be better, but it feels like a lie. Sometimes the honest truth is just accepting that today was a struggle. It wasn't a victory and it wasn't a disaster. It was just hard.
I'm starting to think that maybe consistency isn't about the days where you feel great and get everything done. Maybe it's actually about these days, the days where you feel nothing but you still put your feet on the floor or you still show up at the desk for 5 minutes.
It's about the willingness to try again tomorrow, even when you don't have a win to build on. It's showing up when you're tired of yourself. That feels more real than any motivational speech.
It does. It's less about the effort you put in and more about the fact that you didn't walk away completely. Even if you're showing up empty-handed, you're still showing up.
And maybe that's enough for today, to just be here at the end of the day, acknowledging the friction and getting ready to face it again.
I think so. It's a quiet way to live, but it's a real one.
Well, I think we'll leave it there for now. Thank you for listening to Natural English Talk. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jake. We'll see you next time.